On my recent visit to Ingalls, I stopped to check out the Ingalls Cemetery. I've been to Ingalls several times, but this was the first time I ventured over to look around the cemetery. If you watched my video on the Battle of Ingalls, if you missed it, I will link it up here for you. None of the outlaws, or so I thought, were killed in Ingalls. So obviously, I did not expect to find any bandits buried here. According to an article I found, there was an outlaw referred to as Slaughter Kid who was found dead in the woods. There's little info describing his involvement at Ingalls. If he was killed due to the shootout with the U.S. Marshals, that would have made him the only outlaw that lost his life that day, plus it would have made the death toll rise from 5 to 6. This was in the Guthrie paper on September 5th, 1893. News from the Ingalls is to the effect that Deputy Marshal Houston has died, making 3 officers killed by the outlaws in Friday's battle. Slaughter Kid, another of the outlaws, was found dead in the woods, but no news has been received from the 3 different posses out after the gang. 4 more citizens of Ingalls have been arrested on the charges of aiding the outlaws and taken to the Stillwater jail. I personally have never heard of an outlaw named Slaughter Kid. Let me know in the comments if you've heard about him. I did not locate anyone with the last name of Slaughter in the Ingalls Cemetery, so not sure where he was buried. I did find a couple of gentlemen with direct ties to the Battle of Ingalls. If you will remember, 2 innocent townspeople died in the battle. One is referred to as young Simmons. Dallas J. Simmons was born January 24, 1870 in Harrison County, Missouri. Aged 20 years, 7 months, 7 days at the time of his untimely death. Talk about the wrong place at the wrong time. I found it interesting his stone has the date of death of August 31st, 1893, when by all accounts the gunfight happened the following day on September 1st. In my previous Ingalls video, I mistakenly identified the other innocent bystander killed as Frank Briggs. Frank Briggs was shot at Ingalls, but he did not die from his injuries. N.A. Walker was a bar patron that was an innocent bystander struck in the gunfire that died from his wounds. The correction is based on reading the first-hand account in the diary of Dr. J.H. Pickering, who was present on the day of the gunfight. Pickering tended to the wounded and even spoke with one of the injured outlaws. I will read you an entry from Dr. Pickering's diary. On the morning of September 1st, there were 27 deputy marshals piloted into town in covered wagons. They caused no suspicion as there was hundreds of boomers moving the same way. 2 wagons stopped at Light's blacksmith shop and drove up by my house, and they all proceeded to unload in a quiet manner and take positions. Doolin, Bitter Creek, Dynamite Dick, Tulsa Jack, and Dalton was in Ransom and Murray's saloon. Arkansas Tom was in bed at the hotel. Bitter Creek got his horse and was riding up to a small building where said Connolly stayed, and the marshals, thinking he was known to move, tired of him. Dick Speed, marshal from Perkins, fired the first shot. The magazine was knocked off of his Bitter Creek's gun and was shot in the leg. He made his escape to the southwest. Speed was shot at this time and instantly killed. Also, young Simmons was mortally wounded. The fires of the marshals was centered at the saloon. Old Man Ransom was shot in the leg. Mary in arm and aid. Walker shot through the liver. By this time, the outlaws had got to the stable and saddled their horses. Doolin and Dynamite went out the back door and down a draw southwest. Dalton and Tulsa made a dash for the front door. As they came out, Dalton's horse was hit on the jaw, but he had a hard time getting him started, but finally succeeded. He probably went 75 yards when his horse got his leg broke. He then got off of him and walked to the opposite side for a ways, and then left him and came back to his saddle pockets and got his wire cutters and cut a fence, then got behind one of the other boys and rode off. A great many say he shot Shadley, but I seen Shadley run from place to Dr. Call's fence, and in going through it, he first shot. He then got to Ransom's house and was debating with Mrs. Ransom. She ordered him to leave when he got his last shots. He fell there and crawled to Self's cave. A great many believe that Dalton shot him. Intact, he thought so, for when I and Dr. Self was working with him in the cave, he said Dalton shot him 3 times quicker than he could turn around. But I think I know better. Taking the lay of the ground in consideration, and I stood where I saw Dalton most of the time and never saw him fire once, and Shadley was hit in the right hip and all the balls tended downward. If Dalton had shot him, he would have been shot in front and balls of ranged up. The outlaws crossed the draw south of town and stopped a few minutes, shooting up the street my house is on. One of these shots hit Frank Briggs in the shoulder, but a slight flesh wound. I took him to my cave and dressed his wound, then went to Walker and gave him temporary aid. From there, Murray's and laid his wound open and removed the shattered bone. Some of the doctors wanted me to amputate, but I fought for his arm. 2-inch radius was shot away, slight flesh wounds in the side. About this time, I was called aside and told to go to the hotel, that Jones was up there either wounded or killed. I and Alva Pierce and a boy named Wendell, boys about 12 years old, went over. I went in and called up but got no answer and was about to leave when he came to the top of the stairs and says, "Is that you, Doc?" And I told him that it was. I asked he was hurt, and he said no. He said for me to come up, and I told him if he wasn't hurt, I would not, but he insisted. So I went up. He had his coat and vest off, also his boots, had his Winchester in his hands and revolvers lying on the bed. I said, "Tom, come down and surrender." He says, "I can't do it, for I won't get justice." He says, "I don't want to hurt anyone, but I won't be taken alive." He says, "Where's my boys?" Meaning the outlaws. I told him they had gone. He said he did not think they would leave him. It hurt him bad. I never seen a man wilt so in my life. He stayed in the hotel till after 2 o'clock, then surrendered to Mr. Mason, a preacher. They took him off right away. Of the wounded, Simmons died at 6 p.m. Shadley and Houston was taken to Stillwater. Both died in 3 or 4 days. Walker, shot through the liver, died the 16th. All the rest recovered. Tom was indicted for killing of Houston, Speed, and Shadley, was tried on Houston case and convicted of manslaughter in first degree with no leniency of the court. Judge Dale sentenced him to 50 years of hard labor at the Lansing Penitentiary. That's quite the first-hand account of what took place that day. I knew Arkansas Tom Jones did not die in prison, so I looked it up to find out Tom served 17 years, 4 months, and 22 days and received a pardon for good behavior. Not a lot of time for the deaths of 3 lawmen. The next fellow laying at rest in the Ingalls Cemetery is William Eliza Thomas Dunn, who went by the nickname B. The outlaws, when they didn't stay at the OK Hotel in Ingalls, they would stay at Dunn's Ranch, and B is thought to be the person who eventually gave away Bill Doolin's location, leading to Doolin's death. On August 24, 1896, near Quay, Oklahoma, B was shot by Marshal Frank Canton. I've been to Frank's grave in Oklahoma City before. I will have to do a video on that cemetery sometime. It is one of my favorites, and many notable people are buried there. Dr. Pickering's daughter Molly and her fascinating husband Billy are also buried in the Ingalls Cemetery. One of the most colorful and best-known characters in Oklahoma was Billy McGinty of Ingalls, Oklahoma. He was a veteran of the Spanish-American War and rode his horse in Roosevelt's Rough Riders. For those of you who don't know, the Rough Riders was a volunteer cavalry regiment in the United States Army formed in 1898 for the Spanish-American War, led by Colonel Leonard Wood and Lieutenant Colonel Theodore Roosevelt. The Rough Riders were composed of a diverse group of volunteers, including cowboys, miners, and law enforcement officers. The regiment gained fame for their participation in the Battle of San Juan Hill in Cuba, where they charged the hill and helped secure a crucial victory for the American forces. Theodore Roosevelt's leadership and bravery of the Rough Riders during his battle propelled him to national prominence and eventually contributed to his election as President of the United States. Billy counted Teddy Roosevelt, Pawnee Bill, Buffalo Bill, and even Frank Eaton as his friends. If you are familiar with Oklahoma history, Frank Eaton is the man who Oklahoma State University in Stillwater designed their mascot Pistol Pete after, even though the mascot is carrying a shotgun instead of a pistol. But whatever, boomer sooner. I apologize, I digress. Billy was accepted as a Rough Rider in spite the fact that he was only 5 feet 2 inches in height. However, when it came to getting the job done, riding and soldiering, he was right in there with the tallest and the best. Funny thing is, I'm the same height as Billy. Upon leaving the Army, McGinty made contact with William S. Cody, better known as Buffalo Bill, and became a rider in his world-famous Wild West show. The riders gave a most colorful spectacle with their fast horse riding. One of the most interesting activities of the McGintys was their Billy McGinty Cowboy Band, which played over the radio stations in Oklahoma during the very early days of radio. Molly sang ballads, the band played dance music, western ballads, and became very popular as radio entertainers. Molly and Billy sounded like they were quite the pair. Enjoy the following photographs I took while walking around the cemetery. I thought Ingalls was a nice cemetery. It was larger than I expected, as now the ghost town of Ingalls was once a bustling town. There's lots of old stones, unfortunately a lot of young babies, which also makes me very sad. Infants never really had a chance in life. I find exploring cemeteries captivating journey through history, where each gravestone tells a story. It's peaceful time to reflect, embrace the serenity, and honor the lives of those who came before me. Let me know if you enjoy visiting cemeteries. Whew, this one was a lot. Thank you if you stuck with me through this video. As always, thanks for watching. I appreciate it. Until next time. Bye for now.